Welcome to Wildly Capable with Kate, a podcast made for those looking to unleash their wildest capabilities. I'm your host, Kate DeRocher, a dating, relationship, and self-worth coach on a mission to help people build better relationships, starting with the one they have with themselves. In each episode, we'll dig deep, turn inwards, and embark on a transformative journey. Together, we'll break free from unhealthy patterns, rip through self-limiting beliefs, heal past wounds, and build unwavering self-worth, all to create healthier relationships as a result. Get ready to explore the wild, untapped potential within you. Are you ready to see just how wildly capable you are? Subscribe now and join us on this empowering adventure. Remember, your wildest capabilities await. Commitment is so hard to come by nowadays that an entirely new term has been created to define a relationship where its status, labels, and boundaries aren't defined. Many of you know that term and what it means all too well. Hey everyone, this is Wildly Capable with Kate, a podcast made for those looking to unleash their wildest capabilities. I'm your host, Kate DeRocher, a dating, relationship, and self-worth coach on a mission to help you build better relationships, starting with the one you have with yourself. If you couldn't tell by the intro, this episode is going to be all about that new buzzword that's been flying around in the world of dating recently, one that we know more than we probably want to: situationships. I've been in 2 different situationships in my adult years and have worked with tons of people who've dealt with them too. And I gotta tell you guys, situationships are no joke. While the word is funny and we may throw it around in a lighthearted, roll your eyes kind of way, being in a situationship can actually be extremely complex, confusing, and energy draining. Take it from me. For anyone who doesn't know what a situationship is, and first of all, let me say I am jealous of you. I wish I didn't know what a situationship was. But a situationship is a term that refers to a romantic or sexual relationship that lacks boundaries, commitment, or definition. In other words, it's a relationship dynamic that falls somewhere between casual dating and a committed partnership. It's actually very confusing. This often looks like 2 people who are hooking up and even going on dates, acting like they're exclusively together, acting like they're boyfriend and girlfriend, but never actually saying or defining what they are. The what are we and where do you see this going conversation never actually happens in a situationship. Or that talk happens and one person says they want to keep things casual. Then even though the other person doesn't want that, they do want something more. They go along with it anyway, just to avoid losing that person, losing the comfort of having somebody. Let's be honest. If you choose to stay in a situationship where your needs aren't being met, it's probably not because you're so deeply in love with a person who isn't open to taking the relationship to the next stage. More often than not, what I've seen in my friends' lives, my own life, the life of my clients, it's because you don't want to have to start over. You don't want to have to keep dating. And you're enjoying having somebody who's there all the time and who validates you and somebody just to spend time with. You don't want to have to start over again. And if you're honest with yourself on that, you'll probably see just how true that last statement is. Now, situationships can vary widely in terms of their duration, intensity, and their level of emotional involvement. I've been in a 7-month situationship, and I've also been in a 9-month situationship. And the duration of those situationships, how long they were, and the fact that it's not even a fully committed relationship with labels, that also doesn't determine how impacted you may be by your time with that person. I know that even though maybe the 7 and 9-month situationships weren't that long, they were extremely, extremely difficult and damaging for me. So even though they weren't super long, even though we didn't have labels, they honestly were more damaging for me than the ending of some of my very long-term relationships. When you're in a situationship, you enjoy spending time with that person, going and doing different things, exploring different hobbies, being physically intimate. But you don't explicitly define the relationship or make complete commitments to each other. This lack of clarity can lead to so much confusion, uncertainty, and potential misunderstandings about the nature of the relationship. It can also lead the relationship down a pretty toxic road if things go on for too long. Now, if not everybody's needs are being met, and if situationships can turn sour pretty quickly, why do they even form in the first place? Why do we stay in them for as long as we often do? The answer to those questions, you guys, can be found in a few things. And the biggest of them, in my belief, is with your self worth. If you fall into the category of a person who accepted a lack of commitment in a situationship and just kept going along with things, even though you know you're not getting what you want and need, then likely there's some work that needs to be done when it comes to how much you love yourself. When we don't fully love ourselves, we accept less than what we deserve. On the flip side, when we heal the relationship we have with ourselves, it becomes next to impossible to accept breadcrumbs, confusion, or being treated as if we aren't a priority. On top of that, what I saw in my own life and what I've seen in some of my clients is that they accept these sort of half in, half out relationships because their old childhood wounds have caused them to believe that if they just stick around, if they just try harder or be better, then the other person will end up committing to them, will end up choosing them. They believe that they haven't proven how worthy they are, how lovable they are, how good they are. And if they can just do that, then the other person will change their mind. They'll want to be with them. They will choose them. Then the commitment that they're longing for will finally be deserved and given. That's the unconscious belief that their childhood wounds or past experiences have caused them to believe. It's the belief that you have to earn somebody's love. And that belief is formed in childhood through our earliest caregivers and the relationships we have with them. It's also formed as we grow up and as we age and as we experience difficult experiences while doing so. That belief forms when we have caregivers who only praise and show us attention when we do something good. And that reaffirms a belief that we have to do something, achieve something, be a certain way to be loved. That wound also forms when we grow up with parents who are often absent, either just emotionally or fully physically too, and who only seem to show up and respond to us when we try harder, when we call them more, when we beg for their time, give them money, things like that. That reaffirms the belief that you have to do something to get love. In one of my own situationships, I bent over backwards, trying to get the guy to see how amazing I was, trying to get him to choose me, to love me, to commit to me. I'd bring him smoothies during his busy work days. I'd stick with him even after he was distant or mean. I'd go out of my way trying to plan dates or see him or bring him things when he was sick. I did everything just to get him to finally choose me, to finally love me, to commit to me. You guys, I spent months fighting for his love and respect. Months that I could have spent healing my low self-worth instead. So that way, not only would I stop attracting the emotionally unavailable Peter Pan, afraid of commitment type men, but also not allow those types of relationships into my life, period. If you find yourself constantly ending up in situations or feeling like you're begging for the bare minimum, then it's time to examine how you feel about yourself. And I know that can be hard to hear. I know that's a tough pill to swallow, but it's true. Please don't learn it the hard way like I had to. Forget how the other person feels or how they view you and just start focusing on the relationship you have within. How do you feel about yourself? How do you treat yourself? How do you speak to yourself? How much do you love yourself? Start there. Ask yourself those questions. And when you notice that there are areas that need improving, dive into them. Situationships are often born out of one person forgetting their worth and trying to get another person to see it. So if you can remember and stick to your own worth in an unwavering, unapologetic way, then chances are you'll never find yourself in that type of dead end relationship again. I know that was true for me, and I know that can be true for you too. On top of self-worth, situationships also form when either one or both people in the situation have poor communication and or boundary formation skills. There are definitely circumstances where commitment in a relationship is delayed because someone in that situationship is too afraid to speak up and say what they truly want, a relationship. They're afraid of coming off too strong, seeming needy, or even just scaring and pushing the other person away. They lack the communication skills needed to speak up, and they lack the boundaries and backbone needed to not allow the in-between confusing stage of that situationship to continue past a reasonable time. And while I know it can be hard to take a relationship to the next level, to get out of the dating phase or the situation stage, the truth is that anybody who doesn't respect what you need or who doesn't align with what you want, that isn't your person. So if you bring up the talk, you guys know the one where newly dating couples discuss what they are in terms of labels or terms or where the relationship is heading. If you open that discussion up and if you're rejected when you have it, well, now you know that it's time to move on and find somebody who does want to commit, both to you and in general. So it's a risk worth taking. If you're listening to this and you're a person who desires an actual defined committed relationship, then as you go on dates and start to get to know someone, you need to be very clear with yourself on what you will or will not allow. You need to have clearly defined, strong boundaries, and you need to know what they are before you get in too deep with somebody. Don't allow the dating stage to be drawn out for months and months after it's clear that the next step already should have been taken. Don't allow the other person to string you along and tell you that they aren't ready for a relationship right now, but maybe might be down the line. I've been there. It's not true. They are stringing you along. Don't allow the casual nature of the relationship to just keep going on and on. Sit down and have that conversation. Tell them what you want. Share your needs. And if they don't meet you in the middle, then move on. It's okay. But have those boundaries set with yourself immediately. Set them now before you start dating so you don't get stuck into a situationship. Next, situationships also happen when one or both people have a fear of commitment. Oftentimes, it's just one. Now, plenty of people, especially in today's age, honestly really struggle with the idea of commitment. I saw it in my own relationship. I see it with my friends. I see it in so many clients. If you think about it, there's very little in our society today that actually even fully rewards somebody for committing and sticking to something, let alone someone. If you think about it, there's very little in our society today that actually even awards fully committing and sticking to something, let alone to someone. We aren't rewarded the same way we used to be for having a clean driving record, for example, or for sticking with one company for years and years. We aren't rewarded for taking years to build something, and then instead we often jump from one dream to another. Today, commitment is almost seen as being taboo, as if 100% autonomy is the norm and that's what should be desired, while commitment is much less common. It's even seen as a trap, as a death sentence. How often do we see in the movies people joking about how marriage is the end of your life? Far too often. When you add the way society seems to present and talk about commitment today, on top of the true fear that many people feel when it comes to commitment, it's easy to see why situationships are becoming more and more common. People become scared of a commitment due to past hurts, breakups, ended engagements, betrayals, seeing their friends or family members in unhealthy relationships. So many things cause us to be afraid of committing and sticking to one person. If those fears that come with those situations aren't healed, they can often manifest into a complete avoidance of commitment. And that's manifested and created out of the desire to protect yourself from ending up in a bad situation or being hurt again. The reason that fear is formed isn't bad. It's your brain and your body trying to protect you, but you just don't need your brain and your body to protect you in that way. We need to remove that fear of commitment. Now, I've seen people completely push other people away because they are so scared of sticking with them. They're programmed to believe that if they get closer to that person, if the relationship becomes more serious, then they're setting themselves up for pain. It's a true fear. They would rather shut things down before they get too far instead of risking the potential difficulties or heartbreaks that may come in the future. They cut off the possibility of a beautiful, amazing relationship out of fear. So when the time comes to develop a relationship further, they shut down, they run away, or they just fight to keep things casual. And that is often how situationships are formed. I've been on dozens of coaching calls where I've tried to help the other person, the one who's with someone who's afraid of commitment, understand that the person's inability to show up and commit to them, stick with them through the hard times, likely has nothing to do with them and everything to do with the other person and their fear. It's their unawareness that healing is needed, or their inability or unwillingness to do that healing that's preventing the relationship from developing or causing the person to run away. Now, if you want my opinion, which you likely do because you clicked on this podcast, I believe that situationships are the easy way out. They're a cop-out. Situationships give people the chance to act like they're in a relationship and to feel like they're in a relationship without actually being in one. Situationships provide a false sense of comfort. They allow you to spend time with someone, be romantic with someone, do fun things with that person, act like you're a couple without actually having to give yourself to them, without actually having to give more of yourself to them. For those of you who actually prefer situationships and work to prevent a relationship from developing further, for the people who are listening to this who try to just keep things casual or say that they're only looking for a casual relationship, I believe, and I'm sorry to be so pointed towards you, but I hope you can hear this. I believe that that is your way of playing it safe, of protecting yourself. In these cases, situationships are a way to avoid the hard work that comes with any and all relationship. And it's a way to avoid doing the healing that needs to be done to overcome your relationship fears. And for those of us like me who keep falling into the dead end trap of situationships but are desperately looking for something else, situationships are a sign that we haven't fully done the hard work of loving ourselves and releasing our old patterns. We haven't done the hard work of learning how to identify and stick with healthy matches, people who are emotionally available for us. No matter which side of the situationship you fall on, you're taking the easy way out. But the thing is, it may be easy in the short term, but in the long term, it will leave both parties hurting. No matter which side of the spectrum you fall on, not addressing this work now will make it harder for you in the future. So for the person who walks through life throwing relationships to the side and never giving someone their all, you're going to be left hurting in time when you realize that you have no deep, lasting relationships to turn to. Once you finally pause and take a good hard look around yourself, you're likely going to realize and wish that you had taken the harder way earlier and learned how to build healthy relationships, even though it means risking being hurt. While it may seem that that person doesn't care right now, I promise you that there comes a point in every man or woman's life who avoids commitment like the plague, where they realize how much they've missed out on, where they realize that they're suddenly alone, and that's not a place you want to end up in. For example, I recently had a girlfriend who was seeing a guy for a couple months. She wanted more, and with time, it was clear that he wanted to keep things casual. Once she started to express her needs or the things that weren't working for her in their relationship, he began to pull away. So much so that eventually one day, instead of having a hard conversation, he up and ghosted her, completely ghosted her. She's never heard from him again. Now, my sweet, dear, lovely friend was really hurt and blindsided by his decision and actions. She couldn't understand how he could seem to just so easily move on. But the biggest thing I wanted her to know through it all was that while it seemed easy for him to detach and just walk away and pretend like there was nothing, while it seemed like he didn't care at all and like there were no consequences to how he treated her, that while she may not see it now and maybe never see it, he's actually deeply hurting already. Or he will be once he wakes up a little bit more. If there's anything I've learned over years of dealing with men and people like that, it's that that guy, the guy that my friend was seeing, he's actually the one who's so broken and hurting that he has the capability to even treat other people the way that he does. That's a surefire sign that he's really hurting on the inside. How we treat somebody is a reflection of how we feel about ourselves. On the flip side, for the person who keeps accepting situationships and treatment like that guy gave to my friend, it may be easier in the short term to just pretend like you're cool with it, but every time you compromise on your needs or boundaries just to make somebody else feel more comfortable, you'll end up losing trust and respect for yourself in the long run. I know this because I was that person. I had to learn this the hard way. I stifled my needs and broke my boundaries because I didn't want the person I was in a situationship with to leave. I wanted that temporary, false comfort, security, and validation that they were providing me because I wasn't ready to give it to myself yet. And while I'd lie to myself and pretend for months on end that I was the cool girl, the girl who could just go with the flow, the girl who didn't need anything from anyone, once I finally did leave those situationships, I was left so heartbroken every time. I'd get out of those relationships and be so confused on why I was even in it in the first place. They made me dislike myself, act desperate, accept the absolute bare minimum. They made me forget my value and lose trust in myself. And untangling that mess was much harder than it would have been to just walk away from the person who couldn't give me what I wanted and needed in the first place. If you identify with either of those two people, the way you prevent yourself from facing a ton of hardship down the road is to turn to yourself now and figure out where your healing is needed. Whether you need to heal your emotional unavailability or learn to love yourself more, being in a situationship points towards the fact that healing is, in some way or another, needed. Now, with all that said, I also want to express that the creation of a situationship is the responsibility of both people involved. While it'd be easy to blame the person who's leading the relationship into staying casual, the one who doesn't want to commit, the hard truth is that both people actually played an equal role in allowing the situationship to form. The person who avoids commitment will be the one who leads the pace and level of the relationship. But the person who stays silent and allows that pace to continue is the one who permits the situationship to continue. It can be hard to accept your role in circumstances like these, but it's so important to be able to identify the areas that you can hold yourself accountable to nonetheless. If you never take responsibility, the outcome you're trying to prevent will only continue to happen time and time again until you do. I'm telling you. I'd also encourage those of you who are listening to this who tend to be the one who tries to keep things more casual to start to be more aware of how your actions are likely hurting the other person. I've had numerous people tell me that it's okay for them to keep things casual with the other person because they're honest about it. They tell them up front that they just want something chill and relaxed and casual. They think that as long as they're honest about not wanting more, then they're off the hook for any negative feelings the other person may experience with time. And while it's true that it's the responsibility of the other person to remove themselves from the situation if it doesn't serve them, as a kind, caring, evolved individual, you also have a responsibility to be aware of how your actions are affecting someone else, regardless of whether you're transparent about them or not. If your actions are hurting someone, it's also on you to stop them and remove yourself and that other person from the situation. Simply telling someone you aren't looking for anything serious isn't enough if you know that the other person is holding on to and hoping that you'll change your mind. It shows great strength to restrain yourself from continuing a relationship that you know may be serving you, but isn't serving the other person. And if you're the one who was just told that the person you're seeing isn't looking for anything more serious, even though you are, then please love yourself enough to leave. It's not your responsibility to change that person's mind or to show them how worthy you are of their commitment. You are worthy, regardless of whether they're ready or wanting to settle down with you or not. You are worthy, regardless of if the other person asks you to be their boyfriend or girlfriend or not. You are worthy, even if the other person isn't looking for or ready for what you are. You are worthy, simply because you are. Your worth is not tied to this other person and their desires or their ability to commit. And I hope that you remember that. I hope you remember that trying to change the situation or person's mind will only leave you feeling hurt, disrespected, and anxious. Choose yourself and your health and happiness instead of choosing this person who can't give you what you need, desire, and deserve in return. Choose you. So how do we break free from the cycle of situationships? It starts with self-reflection and healing. You have to learn to love yourself and value yourself. You need to learn how to set firm boundaries and refuse to settle for anything less than what you know you want. While situationship may be a fun new word that we throw around constantly when talking about dating, the effects of them are really anything but casual. While they may offer temporary comfort or companionship, they ultimately leave both parties feeling unfulfilled and emotionally drained. They hinder personal growth and prevent us from forming meaningful connections. And they are nowhere near what you will experience once you do find that person who aligns with your wants and needs. When you do find that person who's ready to give you what you're looking for. When you do find that person who's willing and capable of commitment. That is a relationship worth holding out for. And I sure hope that you do. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts on situationships. And I have so many strong thoughts about them because I've been in them myself. And I've seen how hurtful they can be. I've seen it with myself, with my friends, my loved ones, my clients. I coach people on how to get and stay out of situationships. And I really hope that this episode helps you do that exact thing. Because what you're looking for, commitment, love, dependability, reliability, that true relationship, a connection that you're hoping for, it's out there. You don't have to settle for less than that. So let this be your reminder. And I hope some of you, end this podcast and go straight to that person who's stringing you along and you end things and you respect yourself. That's what I hope to see come out of this. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. My name is Kate, and this is Wildly Capable with Kate. I love doing this with all of you. So if you enjoyed what you listened to, if this helped you in any way, please go let me know. Let me know on my Instagram or TikTok at Coach Kate DeRocher. Leave a comment right here in Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts from. And tune in next week because we have more to talk about. And this is the Wildly Capable with Kate podcast. I created it out of all of my own difficult dating and relationship experiences. And I really hope that it helps some of you form better relationships as a result. If you are interested in exploring how to do exactly that, how to break free from situationships and never be in one again, then DM me the word capable and we'll talk about what coaching could look like for you. And if you liked what you heard, if you got out of a situationship after listening to this episode, please leave me a comment. Please let me know. Please like the podcast, subscribe to it, rate it. It helps me get these messages out to more people, more than you can even imagine. So your support is so appreciated as always. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you here next time on Wildly Capable with Kate.